And just like that, people, we are back live and direct. We got football to talk about tonight a little bit, I guess you can say. For those of you who are tuning in, you have, of course, we'll go down the list of shows. You have the Horns Down podcast. You have Sooners 360 with Mr. Sooners 360 himself, Chris Mason. You have the Hall of Fame College Football podcast with Jason and the coach. Shout out to Coach. Then you have Mr. Brady Trantham, who is a part of Through the Keyhole podcast. So definitely go check out the Patreons, go check out all the links, go check out all those different things, and check out all the content that we're bumping out. Chris Mason, don't necessarily know where he went, but he will be right back. But with that being said, people, we got some things to talk about, a lot to talk about. We've had media days, we've had we've had a little bit of on the field action from the little bit that we've seen. Got a little bit of notes from some places or whatnot. So where we're gonna start this tonight, maybe a little bit different, maybe a little bit different than what you've heard. No, it's not. Let's just be honest, okay? Everybody is kind of force feeding this thought through our to us. We're having to hear his name an awful lot. Taylor Wine, right? So Taylor Wine is pretty much everybody is kind of putting him in that starter role on the other side, opposite of R. Mason Thomas. And so for me, I love it. I like Taylor Wine. The film out of high school showed explosiveness, showed he could bend even at his height, being 6'5", 6'6", showed that he was athletic, and he also showed that maybe in a couple of years, maybe we could say maybe we don't miss Vasic all that much. Maybe we got the better end of that deal, right? So that being said, I'm gonna let our guests start first, and then we'll go to you, Jason, and when we get Chris Mason back, we'll get his thoughts. But what are your thoughts about Taylor Wine possibly taking over that spot, and just the fact that it seems like every media outlet is trying to get that feature article with force feeding this, Brady?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the interesting thing. At some point, someone's going to have to take that spot opposite of our Mason Thomas, and whoever it is, I think we're all at least hoping for. I mean, is it safe to say we're all just hoping for Taylor Wine or whomever it might be to be as good as Ethan Downs was the last 2 years? Because a big reason why our Mason Thomas was able to have the success that he was able to have last year is because you had a guy like Ethan Downs opposite of him, because it forced offensive lines, offensive systems to understand that, yeah, you can't just slide the protection and completely take our Mason Thomas out of the equation, because Ethan Downs is a pretty good player in his own right and demands a little attention. So you can't have a complete and utter black hole. Like whoever is Taylor Wine, if it's going to be him, he's got to be a guy that forces the issue, that can disrupt plays in the backfield in his own right, that can get to the backfield, that can be, finish the play on his own. And if that happens, then obviously OU's got a good player opposite of our Mason Thomas. But again, like the whole main point of all this is this makes our Mason Thomas's job that much easier, and it allows him to become the focal point from a pass rushing standpoint, considering that he's already gotten a lot of hype, and deservingly so, our Mason Thomas this offseason. You just hate for it to be undermined by the fact that whomever, whether it be Taylor Wine or whatever, whoever takes that spot opposite of him just doesn't have it. So I mean, we're all hoping for Taylor Wine to at least be Ethan Downs, which fairly realistic, but still, I don't want to underplay Ethan Downs, because he had a really great career, especially as he got older and older. He didn't necessarily start off from the best spot his first year in 2022, but he definitely got better and improved, became a great player in his own right. So Taylor Wine, you've got some shoes to fill, but they're able to be filled, I think, from a realistic standpoint. It just really comes down to that athleticism. Can you disrupt? Can you create some havoc and get offensive coordinators, like at least get them to a point of like, don't necessarily want to isolate and go all in on our Mason Thomas. So we got to worry about this guy over here. That's the ideal. That's the ideal dream for OU's defensive line, in my opinion.
Jason?
Are you sure you don't want to attack that first there, okay, Chris?
No, look. Byron Smith says no. Be better than Ethan Downs. And
Well, yeah, I would love for him to be better than Ethan Downs, but again, we need to see him play first.
I don't think that he's going to be better than Ethan Downs necessarily right away. I can tell you that I don't think that he's better than Danny Okoye right now. So that's just my feelings on it. Is they've talked about Danny Okoye since last year that he is quite possibly the best athlete in the SEC, not just at Oklahoma, maybe the SEC. This is a guy that went and won the MVP award at Nick Saban's last camp before he retired. I feel like this is a guy that you better at least find out what's going on with him first. I think it's great that if Taylor Wine is becoming that guy that we thought he might have been, I have a hard time believing that he can be better than what we've seen out of Danny Okoye, because Okoye probably should have played more last year. You know what I mean? And I think that they've been trying to do their best to get PJ involved and all that kind of stuff. And I think chances are maybe PJ Adebawore has been passed up. I don't know that I buy the Taylor Wine hype just yet. I got to see this first.
Chris Mason?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got lots of players potentially at defensive end. Obviously, they took Taylor Wine to media day, and he's had a great offseason, and he's 6'5", 275, so he gives you a different body at defensive end than obviously Danny Okoye or Marvin Jones Jr. So I think Okoye is probably who you want to be the next R. Mason Thomas, if we were thinking about maybe where he fits. So I think it's going to be interesting. But Taylor Wine, I mean, if he truly, he's 6'5", 276. When you watched him in the high school, he was very quick, very athletic, kind of a lanky kid. We kind of got him after we lost the kid, the Longhorn Legacy kid, after we lost that UT game in 2022. Vasic. So, they sort of found Taylor Wine in Tennessee before anybody else could really get to him. So if he's able to take over that defensive end position and rush the passer, but also hold the edge. One other thing, maybe just, and I'm maybe just throwing this out there, is if you can play Taylor Wine at one defensive end spot at 276, maybe you go with some three-man front looks, and that allows you to keep Kip, whoever's winning and I know we're probably going to get to this, whoever's winning the McKenzie-Samo competition, and Kendall Daniels in a 3-3-5 look, and that way you keep Dolby, Daniels, both on the field at the same time. If they're two of the best 11 guys that you have, so I think there's some Taylor Wine being a bigger defensive end maybe lets you to try to experiment with some three down lineman looks, and that allows you to keep three linebackers in the game, the big cheetah of Daniels and Samo and Kip. So I think there's some other things that it maybe leads to in terms of how that defense works. But I think it's an interesting – if he starts – I mean, again, I think, you also take Taylor Wine, and that kind of sends a message to PJ and Okoye and Marvin Jones. Guys, get yourself going.
No, I mean, for me, I think with Marvin Jones, maybe it hasn't been the greatest product, maybe just because of a little bit of inconsistency, but he has real game reps. He has a lot of tough game reps, right? You look at Okoye and you talk about the potential. I think out of those three, I think all of us would agree on this panel. I think most in the chat would agree that Okoye probably has the most upside out of all three of these DNs that we're talking about. For me, and Chris Mason, just to piggyback off what you were saying with the 3-3-5, I think that the opportunity could present itself, and maybe that's the key to helping us on those 3rd and 16, 3rd and 20s that usually kind of get us in trouble, right? We kind of give those up, or we let them get a lot of yardage. Maybe that's the key to actually running that zone that that Brent Venables loves to try to run on those, third and long situations. But for me, guys, I think that we got to put it like first off, this is it. Again, Taylor Wine coming out of high school, you put on the tape, he flashes. Not just because he's tall, not just because he's an athletic specimen. He flashes because you see all the things that you want a DN to be able to do. He has really good hands, good technique. Again, he could bend even at that height. So if all those things are there, I think that it could be a success for us. It could be really good for us. Then you're just hoping is that he's not basically going upstream, getting pushed out, and then that's basically it, just setting the edge, doing those different things or whatever. If we can get Ethan Downs out of him, that's great. But I think all of us are wanting somebody that's twitchy, somebody that can really get after that quarterback and win those one-on-one battles that are going to be presented, because our Mason Thomas, at least early on in the season, until everybody, somebody else steps up on the D-line, he's going to get a lot of different, little mini games over there, blocking game for him. But one of the things I would say, if we're looking at this just realistically, let's think about it. Think about what we've seen these last couple of years, right? I say it all the time on this pod whenever we kind of bring this issue up. But who's going to have that stripling role? Who's going to have that that forward role, right? Who's going to have that role of kind of like, special packages, kind of a special, situation? Because if you think about the DM spot, we've kind of been, maybe the depth hasn't always truly been there, but we've been about 5 deep, I would say, each year, because you see the starters, you see the rotation, and then occasionally you'll see that fifth man who's in that forward, that stripling role, who comes out there and is kind of a specialty. And then, that guy usually can carve out more time for himself. We see those guys out there an awful lot. So I think that's kind of where I'm at, just as far as is that stripling role, does that go to a forward? That's more recent. Does that go to a Marvin Jones Jr. or does that go to an Okoye to kind of get him out there with those with better matchups, right? So we're definitely spoiled because we're sitting here having this argument, but it's just one of those things that's how I think about it. That's how that rotation to me will look. Obviously, what's going to happen with our Mason Thomas. He's going to play a lot of snaps, but who's your two man, and then who's that guy playing kind of that specialty role?
Yeah, and I think if you have Kendall Daniels on the field with the other two backers, maybe that answers that question as to who's the specialty role in terms of that. But I think it's Miguel Chavis has done a good job reloading that room, right? We're talking about sophomores, redshirt sophomores, juniors, and seniors. He's done a good job reloading that room. It's got good depth. It's got excellent recruited talent from that perspective. It's going to be I think it's going to be a battle. I think the Taylor Wine thing was kind of the coaches saying, look, we're giving a guy who had a massive offseason, we're giving him his props, but it's also a message like, look, guys, this is, if you want to see the field, you're gonna, the line starts with Wine at this point. And we got to get going. I did think it was interesting that Dominic Williams was saying that he was like, if we can get another guy going on the other side of our Mason Thomas, he goes, that's going to raise our sack numbers inside. I've got to get my sack numbers inside. If OU's got defensive ends that are pressuring, he says, I've got to take advantage of that, and that's got to be huge for me. So he was looking forward to, I think, I was a little surprised. I'm sorry, guys. I've been out of the country for the last 10 days, last 2 weeks, so I didn't have a chance to talk about some of the comments. But I thought that some of the Brent was talking about Dominic Williams. Coach Bates at the coaches luncheon was talking about Dominic Williams and how he's poised for a big year. We don't talk about him as so much because between David Stone and G Baby and Jaden Jackson, it's kind of loaded. But if we're really saying that the OU interior D line is going to get more one-on-one matchups. I think you could see more and more plays, from that group in the pass rush game.
I mean, I definitely think that, I mean, if you really compare it to like the conversations we're having about OU at cornerback, where as of right now, I mean, hopefully this isn't the case once the games start getting played. But as of right now, OU is, I think Brent even said it, they're betting on their youth at that position, especially Eli Bowen being down for the next handful of weeks, however long that is. Gentry Williams, we always know what his situation is. They're betting on their youth. At opposite of our Mason Thomas, OU has a combination of guys that have real life college football experience, like a Marvin Jones Jr., who's played at the Power 5 level, who comes from a lot of high school hype. So there's talent there. Maybe Brent Venables and this staff, Chavis, can tap that just a little bit. Then you have guys that are developmental, where you're hoping for the Brent Venables development, defensive schemes to kind of show themselves at some point. So you're talking about PJ Adebawore, you're talking about Danny Okoye. I think, like Chris, I think you mentioned, I think we all want this to be Danny Okoye. But I mean, talking about David Stone a few months ago when he kind of dipped his foot into the transfer portal for a 24-hour period, a lot of the conversations then was like, well, he only played about 100 snaps. We don't want to lose him. That's not necessarily a good thing, but it's not like we're losing a guy who was, oh my God, like everything that he was hyped up to be coming out of high school. It's not a good thing, but it's.
Whoa.
Well,
but
what?
we did not need to lose Stone, period,
No.
in the story, because he was, Jaden Jackson is only the first guy since Tommy Harris to start as a true freshman. I don't care how many 5 stars we have or haven't had. That's not a guy that they needed to lose.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we had those conversations a few months ago, but the point was you're talking about a guy who played just barely over 100 snaps his freshman year. And so if you transfer that over to Danny Okoye, a guy who didn't even play that much at all, we want this to be Danny Okoye, but we need to see stuff first. So, Chris, to your original question, who can be kind of that specialty role, maybe that just needs to be Danny Okoye to kind of ease him into, all right, this is big boy football at this level. And maybe his talent is so much so that it doesn't matter. He doesn't necessarily need to be eased in to the fray. You can just put him out there and you find out very quickly. You can tell, even against teams like Illinois State, you can tell against teams like Temple that this guy has it. He's got good technique. He knows how to use his athleticism. He knows how to thrive out there on the field. And yes, it's going to get tougher when you play Michigan. It's going to get tougher when you get play in conference. But you can definitely tell, even against bad teams, if guys belong on the field. So we're going to find out very quickly.
That's what I feel about it. Yeah.
Yeah. But we're going to find out very quickly. But the thing I keep going home with is just that at that position, OU's got the right combination of experienced guys, of guys that they've recruited, of guys that they've developed for a few years. So one of them is going to take the spot. And whomever it is, I think we should all be very confident that they're going to be, at the very least, Ethan Downs. We all want more than that, but that's a good place to start with.
Well, in depth-wise, I think you –
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, they've got a lot of depth there. It's a good problem to have when you can rotate guys in and out. And I think even if you go ahead and let Danny play in those special spot, third down guy where he's going to pin his ears back, I think a lot of it – and I tend to wonder this about PJ Adebawore too, with the freakish athlete that he is, forget the technique. Turn them loose and see what they can do against competition.
I think it's been a help for PJ, and I'm sorry that we forgot about PJ. I think PJ's in that mix as well. You just kind of got to see. The reps will be there. The plays will be there. Real quick sidebar, Shawty says, how you guys feel about the versatility of the defense? Do you feel comfortable defending the pass or the run? Some teams may force you to play to a weakness, rather it be playing more linebackers or DBs. To me, I feel comfortable this year. I know, as to Brady's point, we're kind of betting on youth, but for me is that there's a couple of there's some youthful guys. You will have a Cortland Guillory. What it seems that he may get some play over there at corner. You're going to be able to push Dolby out there. Jacoby Johnson, I think we're waiting on him to really take that next step. But between Devon Jordan, Newcomb and then also Cortland Guillory. I think you're just waiting for one of those guys to pop up.
Malik Hawkins too.
Yeah,
Malik Hawkins too.
I think you're waiting for one of those guys to kind of pop in there as well. But I think you're fine simply because out of the three names that I named, well, I didn't name Eli Bowen or Gentry. They're healthy. Everything is going fine with that. Jacoby, you mix in somebody like a Newcomb or a Devon Jordan as well. They've been here, so they understand this. So now you're in year 2 with those guys, year 2 and 3 with some of those guys, just like you're in year 3 with your year 3, year 4 with your safety room as well. I think that one of the things is that we all know, I think we all understand a good D line can mask any problems that you have on the back end. So if you're
not going to have a lot of time to get the ball out for sure.
Exactly. And it may be one of those things where, when we play Illinois State, when we play maybe Michigan at first, just to get Bryce Underwood get him poised, get whoever's going to be their quarterback, maybe Temple as well. Maybe it's one of those things where we kind of go back to 2022, where early in the season, these teams are trying to get the ball out of their, or 23, excuse me, where these teams are trying to get the ball out of their hands as fast as they possibly can, because our pass rush is pretty good, and they know they can't, necessarily compete with that. So to me, I think that this is truly the strongest our D-line has been. Our front seven has been, however you want to go about that. But I think our back end is going to be just as good, simply because with RSJ, Peyton Bowen, I think that we're going to have a super athletic back end. I just think that it's just got to come together. But I mean, hey, it's nothing new for any other team out there in the nation right now as well.
I think Daniels and Dolby give OU a level of versatility they haven't had in the past. If teams want to go play big boy football with us, we've got the 4 down linemen we need, and then we can play 3 backers. You could play Dolby at corner as well, depending upon what's going on.
Yes, you can. Yes,
you've got big safeties in RSJ and Peyton Bowen. So if people want to try and run on OU, I think OU has a big lineup they can play. Basically, Kendall Daniels becomes like a Sam linebacker, and that's going to eat against a lot of defense, a lot of offenses. And then if you're trying to spread OU out, I think you can go 3-3-5 that I talked about. That keeps Daniels on the field as well. I think Daniels is maybe a tight end eraser that you have, matches up with tight ends as more of a Sam backer. And then you bring Kendall Dolby in, and you have Kendall Dolby to go with Eli Bowen, maybe Gentry, and then RSJ. And then you've got Reggie Powers. I mean, the thing about the OU defense I like is that when you think about it, we have a lot of fourth-year guys, and a lot of third-year guys, and a lot of second-year guys that are really that make up the majority of the 2 deep, right? And we know Brent's defense takes a while, especially at the safety and linebacker spots. We've got a lot of players and veteran players and players who've played a lot, and as we've mentioned, the D line is it's 2 deep at defensive tackle, and Brady makes a good point. Marvin Jones played a lot. PJ has played quite a bit. Danny's the only really, and Danny and Taylor Wine are the inexperienced guys, but they both had both had good springs. So did PJ. So I think when you look at the Brent defense, we've got a senior group, right, to lead it. Then you've got a whole bunch of third-year guys ready to make that big next leap.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got sophomores who played quite a bit, who are, it's something we didn't ever see before, which was that iterative process where defenders improve. It just seemed like, the past defensive schemes we had, guys just weren't getting better. They'd flash. We'd have like Obo, or Benito. You'd have some guys that would, but for the most part, you wouldn't see it sort of systemically occurring. But you can just look at the OU defense and just see that there's depth there, and it's sophomores, it's juniors, it's seniors. I mean, Guillory is probably the only freshman that has a chance to make up. If Gentry and Eli are healthy, right, Guillory's really the only guy that has a chance to make, I think, a defensive impact. as a true freshman.
I don't
The
know.
rest of your two deep is loaded. I mean, I don't think C.J. Nixon is. I don't think Marcus James is going to. Trent Wilson's a wild card if we go three deep at D tackle. But overall, I think you just see experience, depth on defense, guys that know the system,
Which is a good thing. Yeah.
leaders that know the system on every level. And then those second year guys are just going to get better and better.
Mhm.
So I think when you ask about the versatility of the scheme, to me, I think you can play you can play bear fronts, you can play 4-man fronts, you can play 3-man fronts. You've got 2 linebackers you can play in Samo and Kip, who never have to leave the field. Kobe McKenzie also gives you depth. Kendall Daniels can play a multitude of sort of Sam linebacker, nickel linebacker stuff. And then
You play edge rusher probably. You could probably play edge rusher.
If you think about like Lenora Sellers, I mean, Kendall Daniels is the perfect spy on him, right?
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
he'll run over small guys. He's not
So
running
just
over
to-
Kendall.
Just to jump in here, I'll just say it's like, Shadi, I think for us, just on this panel, I think we all agree. I mean, don't get me wrong, last year was not a great year. It was a bad year. But defensively you had a lot of bright spots defensively last year. A lot of games that were close that could have went either way. It's just the fact of offense, So it's one of those things where to me, I take your question and I say, I get that. There's merit in that, and I understand that. But for me, if we could get back to complementary football and we could play with leads and kind of let some of these guys loose, and to where some of the defense, Billy last year, I say this and I'll die on this hill. I think that he was trying to make up for a lot of stuff. Fact that you lost Dobie, now he's really the ball hawk. He's the ball hawk out there on defense. So he's trying to play close to line, trying to account for a lot of different things. Danny as well, right? So it's just one of those things. But I think you'll be fine. But let's move on to the next subject, people. So the next topic, Kobe McKenzie. Kobe McKenzie had a comment in his presser or pressers that I thought was really interesting. Essentially, that comment was, hey, I told Sammy O that, hey, if you want my spot, if you could take my spot, take it. I'm paraphrasing, I'm summarizing a little bit, but essentially that's what he said. Brady, I'm gonna come back to I'm gonna go right back to you. What were your initial thoughts about that? Because I think we all think that Kip can thrive in his defense. I think that he can be really good. Not Kip, excuse me. Kobe can be really good at his defense, but I mean, we hear it's really close between him and Samo. I mean, where are you leaning, and just what are your overall thoughts about that battle going into this camp?
Yeah, I like Kobe McKenzie. His first year when he was able to get onto the field, I think the first real big game he actually got a lot of time in was the game in Stillwater against Oklahoma State, right? Just kind of a tough spot, rivalry game, hostile environment. Last game that you're going to play Oklahoma State, they're juiced up. Danny Stutzman's down. Kip Lewis is already having to slide over and play a lot more than he had done up to that point. And he's playing well. Kobe McKenzie also played well, but he also kind of looked like a guy who was like, yeah, this is like my first time really being the guy on the field. But I'm just a big proponent of guys that when they are thrust into an unfair, not necessarily an unfair situation, but a non-ideal situation, they don't look scared. They look like they belong. Okay, you got something to work with there. So, and I think Kobe even said during his press availability that he understands that he's not necessarily been as good as he was hyped up to be coming out of high school in his time at OU. And he looks at this year as a great opportunity for him to prove all those recruiting services correct, because he was kind of some service had him as a 5-star. He was a high-end 4-star, one of the best recruits in the state of Texas, originally committed to was committed to Texas when Brent got the job. They had to flip him. Brent mentioned that at SEC Media Day. So that the talent is there. And again, it's just kind of the same conversation that we're having about the opposite side, the defensive end opposite of our Mason Thomas, where you've got talent, you've got some wow factor with Sammy Omosigho, and kind of like, oh my God, I would love for that talent to be fully realized and throw that out there against any OU opponent. But Kobe McKenzie is kind of a nice, steady force, but I would like for that to become a little bit more than just a nice, steady force out there, because if OU's defense is going to get to that next echelon of truly elite SEC defense, they would kind of flirt with it last year. Offense didn't necessarily help them, not playing complimentary football. If you have a better offense, your defensive numbers should improve just because you're not having so much pressure on you. So improvement should happen. But if they're able to get to the elite tier of the SEC, and i.e. being one of the more elite defenses in the entire country, Kobe McKenzie's development is going to have a big part to say in that. And, you know, the good thing about Sammy Omosigho, he doesn't necessarily need to play that position. He played cheetah basically most of last year. Ideally, do you want that, especially if Kendall Dolby is healthy and he doesn't necessarily need to play cornerback? You think you want Kendall
Well, and Reggie
Dolby?
Powers is apparently like really on that as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like there are a lot of options, but Kobe McKenzie being kind of a baseline for this is where the defense is starting, like at that position. I like it, but I want more. I think Kobe McKenzie can give us more. I think Sooner Scoop's podcast earlier today, they'd mentioned how many the leading tacklers from the team last year. And I was pretty shocked Kobe McKenzie had, I think, under 40 tackles, if I heard that correctly. I was kind of shocked.
Yep.
I expected it to be a little bit higher than that, but that just goes to show you like how valuable Danny Stutzman was, how valuable Billy Bowman was, like Chris, like you mentioned, him shooting the running gaps and trying, not necessarily cheat in a bad way, but to we need to stop the run first. If we're going to be a good defense, we need to go stop the run first. Billy Bowman was a big part of that. Kobe McKenzie has got the size. He's got the measurables. I want to see it, but I'm not saying that as a person who's been disappointed in his time, but I love the attitude that he's bringing into the season. I love the leadership that he's displaying by telling Sammy Omosigho, if you want my job, go take it, because it's just going to make us both better. And that's the culture Brent Venables has tried to build, especially on defense, but throughout the entire program. That's the culture that he has wanted, and it's true. It makes everybody better. So if it makes Kobe McKenzie and Sammy Omosigho better, then I think we'll all be happy for that.
I agree with that too, and I think that.
Oh, go ahead.
I think that Kobe's kind of left me wanting a little bit more a lot of the time whenever he's on the field. So to me, I can see that being a comment, and I think that maybe he's saying that because it is a competition there, and maybe Sammy O is pushing it, and that's not a bad thing. No, it's never a bad thing whenever you got two guys that are really pushing for a position and competing hard. I think it's nothing but positive on that end of it, because in the end, I think that Kobe is, like I said, he's kind of left me wanting more a lot of times. You hear that stat that Brady just said, only 40 tackles on the season. Listen, I understand that Danny Stutzman was the heart and soul of that defense, playing that position, but I think that it's a significant drop off from Danny to him at the moment, right? If what we have in Samuel Omosigho is more of that guy that can be around the ball no matter what and sniff all that stuff out, cool. That's what I'm here for it. You know what I mean? All the way here for it. So to me, I don't think that it hurts anybody. I don't think it hurts anybody to have a competition that's moving at every position, by the way. And all I want to see is the best guy is in the game. In the story. I don't care what position we're talking about.
Chris Mason?
Well, I mean, to Brady's point, Kobe was kind of the higher rated guy coming out of high school. Sammy O was very highly rated as well. As more of an athlete, like what would you do with him? Because he actually played wide receiver a lot in high school. So Sam O has finally kind of put on the weight. If you see some of the offseason, workout stuff with him, I mean, he looks insanely good. So I think it'll be an interesting battle. Obviously, when you watch Brent's defenses, playmakers at linebacker are what push it above, right? When he's got playmakers at linebacker, even with the front four looking as good as it could be, it's really the linebackers when Brent's got elite playmakers at linebacker, which is kind of, it's kind of, an obvious statement, but I think it's great that there's a push there. I think, Samo has just a little bit more, I would say, athleticism, although Kobe's been working on redoing his body, kind of, not being so top heavy, and he's looked improved mobility wise year over year. I think it's a battle to watch. It's one of the they're other than what will go on with the O-line. It's one of the few true position battles where you've got two veterans going at it. Third-year players going at it for a starting spot, where whatever happens, the other guy's going to play a lot, because those three guys are a little interchangeable. Kip, Samo, and Kobe. You can play Kobe and Samo. You can play Kobe and Kip, and you can play Kip and Samo. So it's those three guys are going to eat the majority of the linebacker real game reps. I don't think Heineke or Nesta are quite ready yet to make that like a 4-person rotation. I think it's a 3-person rotation with some Daniels sprinkled in. I've heard that Heineke, Mateer, and Taylor Heim all had good springs. The next wave of linebackers looks good. I've heard great things about Marcus James and how he looks, and he could be kind of an elite guy down the road, not this year, but just physically what he brings at linebacker could be very interesting. So I think it's one of the few third-year, fourth-year battles, but for starting that we have on the team, where two guys really, both know the Brent defense, have played the Brent defense, and I think it's just going to come down to whichever is the bigger playmaker, and that's good news as far as I'm concerned, because the other guy, is going to play a lot of reps, so it's iron pushing, sharpening iron, steel on steel, whatever, kind of fake fighting analogy you want to use there. But it's again, like if Samo is pushing Kobe McKenzie to be the best Kobe McKenzie, that's what you want at every position. And I think it's going to be a battle to watch, I think, through fall camp, because, you don't, some of the other positions, you don't have two sort of veterans like this going head to head. At least on the defense. I mean, we've got a lot of other interesting position battles, but these two guys are both could both easily be starters and could be captains on that football team.
And let's be honest here. This is a Brent Venables defense. He's whomever, like, let's say Kobe McKenzie wins the starting job, or Sammy Omosigho, whomever it is. It's not like the other guy is not going to see the field because they didn't win the starting job. Brent's going to throw them out there. And you know what? Sometimes he's going to throw them out there on a pivotal third down. And it's like, could you just please throw your 11 guys out there so everybody knows what they're doing and someone's not sprinting onto the field to get to their spot right when the team is about to snap the ball? Can we please not do that anymore? But, Brent's going to have his ways.
I mean, yeah. True. With him being able to have the defense fully at his will, this is a Brent Venables defense. These are Brent Venables guys. They've been in the system long enough to know what's going on. This could be something special. As far as that is concerned with Kobe and Samo, I thought that he was a decent cheater. I thought that the more that he played, the more that he understood the position. But I think a lot of it gets overshadowed by the Kip 6, the first one against Auburn. But Samo came down and had he tackled their I think it was a tackle for a loss. I want to say it was a tackle for a loss on their running back, that Auburn running back. It was the play before the Kip 6. It was a crucial play simply because we hadn't really been able to stop them all that much. They were killing us kind of with that West Coast theory that they were running that entire time, just short yardage stuff, just trying to dink and dunk down the field. But that was a big tackle. Got him on the ground, got everything situated, and then boom, obviously that happened. The rest is history. We already know what happened. But no, I think Samo, it was just one of those things where even though you felt like at the cheetah position he was doing well, you just always felt like, hey, getting him closer to the ball, that's probably where he needs to be at. So
I think what we're all sort of wondering is,
Yeah.
Now that he's been focused at linebacker and not doing Cheetah, and he did a good job at Cheetah after he lost Dolby, filling in as he could. But I think we all think his ceiling at linebacker, at true inside linebacker, is much higher than at Cheetah. There's a chance that, you if this all goes well and he clicks and he's doing the assignment stuff he needs to do, physically, Samo and Kip, that's an old SEC. I mean, just athletically, haven't seen it on the field yet. That's a serious inside linebacker duo for the Sooners. That echoes kind of the Rufus Alexander, Lance Mitchell kind of groups, that kind of athleticism, those kind of linebacker groups. I don't think we have seen, Asamoah and Stutz never really were both playing at the same high level together. Because Stutz hadn't quite turned the corner yet. But I think that's what you're talking about. If you have Samo, who's like 6'1", 6'2", 235, and just a rock, and just flies all over the field with Kip Kip's up to 228, 227, something like that. You have him flying around at will. That's the highest ceiling, right? Just athletically playmaking. It's can he beat Kobe's consistency at Mike linebacker?
All right. Let's keep on moving. So, Jake, shout out to Jake for the comment because this is going to segue into our next topic. So,
oh boy,
Jake says, I'm curious if we will have our 5 O-line established by week 2. Rotating a lot on the O-line against Michigan will be annoying.
I wish, but this is Bill Bedenbaugh.
I've been saying it for the longest. Chris Mason knows I've been saying it for the longest on and off screen. I would love to get to a season where Bill Bedenbaugh knows his 5 first game or at least second game. Not necessarily by the 4th or 5th game. And then when we finally face Texas, those are the guys we're rolling with. He's been afforded that luxury so long. But I don't think you're going to be able to be afforded that luxury all the time. So with that being said, I mean, Chris Mason, will throw it down to you.
Well, so we're presuming that it's not a mass unit week to week, right? That Bill doesn't know who's available week to week, right? I mean, it was absurd last year, but that was obviously a factor in what was going on. So, they practiced today. I think the reports floating around the net are that the starting 5 was Sexton, EPL, Everett, Fabechi, and Morris, right? I think that's what it was said. So I think that's the starting 5. I think that's where we start with, and that I think is going to be the starting 5 that will go against Michigan.
Say that again. Say that starting 5 again, or just who started today?
Who started today? Let me just double check that. Someone sent me a note. Let me go back, scroll back. A lot of stuff flying around today. Okay, it was Sexton, EPL, Everett, Fabechi, and Simmons. I keep wanting to call Simmons Morris. I don't know why I keep getting that name wrong. So it was Derek Simmons, the transfer, Fabechi at right guard, Everett at center, EPL at left guard, and Sexton at left tackle. When they did drills today, that was the starting group. That doesn't mean that's going to be the starting group for Michigan. But when you think about that group, for the most part, that's a pretty experienced group other than EPL. But I think Ozida and Howland are just, they missed most of what's going on. They missed spring because they had their shoulder surgeries. So I don't think that'll be. Will that be the starting 5 for Michigan? I think it's as good a guess as any right now. It's a good guess. Sexton. Can Sexton hold off Fasusi? Probably. EPL hold off Ozida. That's probably again another good competition there. Everett versus Mikaelu. I think they probably will probably Everett will hold on to that position. If nothing else, the leadership thing he's given, and he's put on good weight. Fabechi and Simmons. I think Simmons, if he can lock down the right tackle, that gives you some options. But I think Fabechi is probably the one spot I would wonder if you see Foje maybe start to take over there. Maybe you move try Ozeda at right guard. If Fabechi is not giving you what you need at right guard. So I think Simmons is locked in the right tackle. Left tackle is probably Sexton and Fasusi, maybe. Avery Dent's finally healthy, and the wild card is obviously Brent keeps mentioning Daniel Ekinkimi. So he's obviously had a good spring. He's been healthy. He's had a good summer. So you've got some pieces to move around in there. So I think I think we will have a veteran starting five for Michigan. What happens after that is anybody's guess in terms of performance. I mean, Bill, sometimes it takes a little while for him to get some pieces together. Sometimes injuries play a big role in this in terms of what is the best five, not the five best offensive linemen. What's the best five? How well are they communicating and working towards it? So Sexton is a tackle. Everyone's trying to move him to guard. I don't quite get that because we have other guards that can
Everybody thinks he's a big guard, man. Everybody thinks that's where he projects as a pro.
I think he's a tackle based upon everything. If we'll see if he's healthy enough to keep the tackle position going. But I think OU has other options at guard, and you can figure out some things there. But it's naive to think we're going to have the same starting five the whole season. That's just not the way this works.
Guard's all about leverage, man. You can't be 6'12" and play guard. So it's just
he's nearly 6'7". I mean, he's a tall ass kid.
He's huge. No, answering the question just right off the bat, the answer is going to be no, because this is Bill Bedenbaugh, like we kind of alluded to at the very beginning of the conversation. But I think you can hope for some individual, placements. And Chris, you alluded to it already. I want Ozida to take Fabechi's spot before game one, because OU's offensive line, whatever their ceiling is, and I think we can all agree that they're going to start from a much higher floor than they started this time last year. Is that awesome? Not necessarily, because the offensive line was bad last year. And while it improved towards the end of the year, it was still not good. It was not Bill Bedenbaugh, Oklahoma Sooner offensive line good enough. So they're starting from a better floor. That's great. Be healthy. But guys like Fabechi, Wiwu, I need Ozida to take that spot before game one. And then you can start picking and choosing whether or not you want to live in the world of Michael Fasusi is truly that dude, and he just by Michigan or maybe by Auburn, he solidifies a starting role as a true freshman and shows the world that he is everything that he was hyped up to be coming out of high school. That would be great. But I think OU's offensive line hits whatever ceiling they have. I hate to dog on him, but if Fabechi is not a part of the starting conversation, I was just so underwhelmed.
He needs to seriously raise his game, right? To keep his position. Keep his position. He needs to do a lot.
Yeah, he was billed this time last year as I remember Gabe Eichert talking about him on his podcast a handful of times during the offseason as the physical guy, the guy that was the physical specimen or the guy that played with the most tenacity. And then the season starts and he's getting pushed around by Temple he's getting knocked repeatedly in the backfield. And maybe that's not all on him, because while it's easy to kind of look at individual matchups when you're talking about the line of scrimmage, sometimes guards or tackles get pushed around because they're having to also help out guys around them. And it's not just simply I can't handle the dude in front of me. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I understand that, but they need that position to be better. And maybe Fabechi's made a leap, for all we know, and it's going to make me look silly. And he can be second team all SEC at that spot. That would be great. But I think if we're talking about starting off from a better floor, I want Ozida, and understandably so, Chris, like you mentioned, offseason surgery. They're not going to get the starting position day one of fall camp. You're going to ease them back into the sway of things. but hopefully by Illinois State and definitely, hopefully by Michigan. If Abechi hasn't made that leap, hopefully he is watching snap number one from the sideline from much better seats than all of us combined.
So
I mean, you just look at this. I mean, you just look at the depth that they have this year versus last year. When you think about the fact that, I mean, we were playing our 4th string center, our 5th string tackle. You know, it was a disaster. I mean, it was an injury disaster. Schematically, it wasn't very good. And I think you're right. So, you know, Fabecki has August camp to say he should be starting, but you can send, but obviously they want to send Ozida and Akinkimi at him and EPL as well. So they want the young guards to push, and, you know, I'd feel happier there. And, you know, I'd feel happier if we could keep Sexton, Simmons, and Fasusi, and maybe Howland as your 4 tackles. I'm having tackle flashbacks to Tarquin and Spencer Brown, and I just want better guys out there and now more talented guys out there. So, you know, I don't want Sexton being moved to guard. We've got other guards. Let them fight it out and keep Sexton. If he's a backup tackle and Fasusi beats him,
but
well,
Chris,
that's it.
Chris Mason, I got to jump in. Okay. Jake says, I find it hard to believe that Beaton Bowl will have back-to-back bad O-line play. He'll get them right. I believe that as well, Jake. I think
better
we all
not
believe that as well. But what I will say is this right here. I disagree with the Sexton thing simply because, one, I think what Eichert and a lot of people are wanting to see at that tackle spot is the more athletic guy, is the guy that has the prototypical size and can use all of that and has shown that, and that's what we're hearing about Fasusi. But I say this right here. One of the things to me in the last couple of years that has really disappointed me with the O-line has been our interior play, our interior O-line. I've watched I went back and watched just about all college football I can watch. So I watched Georgia versus Texas. I watched Ohio State win a national championship. I watched Penn State versus SMU again, of all things. That's how I need college football to be back, right? But what I'm trying to say to you guys is this right here. Go back and I'm watching Iowa State versus us when the Rattler Caleb year, right? I'm watching our O-line against K-State when Rattler went up there. Rattler had probably one of his finest days as a Sooner. And kind of the common thing that you saw that offensive line was like, damn, it doesn't matter if it's a big guy or a small guy that's athletic. Everybody is giving Andrew Rain problems. And Matoir and whoever else was in there on the inside, we weren't physical on the interior. And our run game has oftentimes been that zone scheme run game. When you go back to Levy, that was one of the things that, you know, Eric Gray, that's what made him so great, in my opinion, was that he could get through the trash and then he can make that he can win that one-on-one battle that he was trying to get at that second level, albeit a safety that's coming down or most of the time that linebacker. So it was just one of those things where we haven't been nasty enough. We haven't been physical enough. So that's the thing about Nwewu that I kind of question is I don't necessarily want to see a guy out there that's just big and it's just kind of, you know, holding the block. I want to see somebody. I want to see somebody get the shit knocked loose. I mean, if I just may say, just be very blunt with you, I don't necessarily see that with Nwewu, with him getting that push, and I think that's just kind of been my issue with it the whole time. So maybe we get that from Nwewu. All eyes and all ears are. I mean, everything is pointing towards him. Excuse me. All signs are pointing towards him improving this year and being that guy. But for me, I know who I can go with into a fight, and that's EPL. I know on the inside, I know he can fight. I've seen him. It doesn't matter if it's first string, second string, third string, somebody getting put on the ground. But he hasn't been nasty enough for me, and that's what scares me about him. So if we're gonna have somebody that's just doing their job, why not just put Sexton there, Ozida or somebody else, and just going about your way instead of just wasting time with him whenever somebody else can get meaningful snaps there.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing. We think the Nwangwu needs to radically improve his game to stay in the starting lineup. That Ozeta, EPL, I don't know if Jake Taylor could be moved inside as a guard because he's, I don't think he's quite got the foot speed for tackle. At least that's what the comment has been by multiple folks. You've got options to go in there, and I think you're going to see that. I'm just saying that, our tackle depth last year just evaporated, right? And we were playing guys that were basically getting abused and were turnstiles in the SEC. I'm not ready to lose Sexton if he's healthy. And you weren't sending him to media day if he didn't have a good spring and they didn't think he was healthy and they didn't think he was going to be a leader on the O-line, right? And he was there. He's been working with R. Mason Thomas directly. So again, Sexton's not a guard, guys. We have guards. Sexton's a tackle. If Autry Dent or Fasusi beats him out, Sexton as your backup tackle with what we went through last year is perfectly fine. That's you need tackle depth in the SEC. We know we need tackle depth. I think it's a lot of moving pieces on the offensive line. There's a lot of different ways it could go, but I think Brady's right. Ideally, I think we all would like to see, based upon what we're hearing, Fasusi, EPL, Everett, Ozida, and Simmons. That might be the five that could be the five that come out of camp. But Sexton can play left and right. He gives you depth there. Avery Dent is coming back from an injury. I think he has a lot of potential there as well. And then at guard, I keep hearing Foji is just as likely to start as Fasusi because he's massive inside, probably a little easier to play guard than tackle as a freshman. We saw that with a name I don't want to mention, Caden Green, obviously. That NIL battle badly hurt us last year. You wouldn't even gotten Nwangwu if you'd had Green returning, really. So I think those are some of the things you'll see, but it's going to shake out over a couple of weeks. And it wouldn't surprise me if Sexton starts Michigan and then you see Fasusi show up more against Temple and more against Kent State. I don't think you want to start Fasusi game one against Kendrick Falk from Auburn. Maybe you don't want, maybe you do. Maybe that's the guy you've got to have against Falk, who's 6'7", 280, and is a first-round draft pick at defensive end. Maybe that's the guy you need to have there. So I think there's some matchup things you need to think about from this. But I think overall, my number one positive about Bill and the O-line is this is the scheme he coaches. Arbuckle calls the spread Bill knows like the back of his hand. He knows how to set up blocking schemes. And I think Kevin Wilson helping him is gonna show up too, because if you're Bill and you're sitting with Kevin Wilson, that's more O-line brain power than any other program in the country has. For those guys that don't know who Kevin Wilson was or don't remember him, his offenses in 07 and 08 were unstoppable, basically. And Kevin is a serious O-line guy, understands the running game. So I think he can help Bill and Arbuckle, get together. But I think the number one reason one of the reasons you hired Arbuckle is because Emmett Jones, DeMarco, and Bill all know exactly what he wants to do. They know that from Lincoln, from work being coached by Lincoln. They know that scheme inside and out. And I think that's the number one reason I think Bill will have things going. We heard all kinds of bad rumors that Bill didn't know what the blocking schemes were under Luttrell until like game day. He didn't know what the hell was going on, and it showed because the O-line, as bad as they were, they got better. They got slightly better. They weren't executing at a great level, but at least they were actually blocking someone. Those first games, those out-of-conference games we had, they're just blowing assignments left and right. They didn't know what they were doing. They weren't even just putting a hat on somebody, and that at least got a little bit better. Then it fell off, obviously, once we lost Sexton, and we had to start playing Tarquin and Spencer Brown, kind of exclusively.
Well,
with all due respect, I don't know if DeMarco knows what he's doing just yet.
Well, you're part of the DeMarco team. I'm on the other side of the DeMarco thing. He didn't look like didn't know what he was doing in 22, 20, and 21.
Well,
when Marcus Major gets hurt, then he'll play the right guy.
That is.
Well,
we'll get back to that conversation.
Our new GM did not spend whatever we spent on Jay Knott to watch him bringing Gatorade to Giovanni Barnes.
We will find out if GMs can call timeouts in college football, because if Jade Knott is on the sideline on a pivotal down and Javante Barnes is out there, we will see Jim Nagy run onto the field and call timeout and then look at DeMarco and go, what are you doing? He is here to play 85-90% of the snaps, not your boy from Las Vegas.
That's true. But yeah, guys, we've been on here for about an hour. So Chris Mason, you got 5 minutes to hit us with your best recruiting notes, if you have any, and then we'll say our sayonara's.
So Davion Gross keeps telling, was it Steve Spiegelman or Stan Spiegelman? Anyway, the one of the guys that rivals, that he's close to making a decision. But he's been close to making a decision for like 4 weeks. So I don't know what's going on there. It's OU, it's Baylor. I don't know what the final mechanism is to push him over the top to make a decision here. But that's what we're waiting on. Davion Gross, top 100 wide receiver, would be the skill position guy at wide receiver. You need to go with Daniel Odom, give you a good wide receiver class, allow you to only have to pick up one guy this fall. And there's wide receiver talent all across the country. It's a wide population there. The more interesting story, SUNY Cowboys just mentioned it. Elijah Golden is making his decision on August 9th. This looked like a Notre Dame slam dunk. 30 days ago, I would have said Notre Dame slam dunk. OU will be a hat on the table. No point to it. It's now getting very, very close. OU's made a huge push. I'm told from sources that Nagy loves Golden, thinks Golden is an elite player. And that's why OU's making a big push. Everyone's like, well, Nagy's, moneyballing this. No, Nagy's waiting for the right time and the right players to spend the money he wants to spend on guys he thinks are going to be elite. So when we skip a guy, it's because Nagy doesn't think he's going to be elite, or he needs to see more film before he'll spend more money. It's just a simple calculation like that. He thinks Golden's big time. Bates has been going after him, just pedal to the metal. I would guess Notre Dame, just with the way OU's been losing recruiting battles head to head a little bit here or there. But I think there's a good chance. I think there's a chance that OU pulls off a big steal and gets Golden. For those that haven't watched his film, he's 6'4", 275, 280. He is a blur off the line, powerful, explosive. He's a 3-tech, probably plays around 285, 290. But he's his speed off the line is what you're looking at. You cannot offensive linemen just watch him go by. He plays defensive end in high school quite a bit, and he's super productive at the defensive end spot. You move him inside and put some weight on him, he's going to be deadly at the 3-tech. He's like 185 to 200, his ranking. I think he's more somewhere in the range of a top 100 guy. With him and Brian Harris, you've got 2 Florida defensive tackles, very athletic, a lot of burst. The athlete guy they were trying to recruit, Joel Wyatt from Tennessee, chose the Vols. I think OU could probably bring him in for a visit, see if they can make some movement there. It sounds like the D'Anthony Lafayette recruitment isn't over. He wants to come to an OU home game. See if OU can make a move there. Jake Krull is probably going to be in town, I'd imagine, for an early home game. I've not heard that he's going to be in for the Michigan game, but that sort of makes the most sense. OU still targeting wide receivers. They made a linebacker offer to a Northwestern commitment. 6'3", 210, 215 kids, long wingspan, rangy, looks far better than his rankings. But obviously OU's also, probably wants to see some senior film before they make a big push on him. So I think they're looking for another linebacker in the class, which I applaud. But I think Nagy's basically, I've been told he has money to make moves this fall. Find the guys he really likes. If we've made improvements on the field, that makes recruiting so much better. OU doesn't have momentum right now. If OU wins at Michigan, wins versus Auburn, you've got some momentum. You can start selling, and then Nagy can hopefully flip, will get us in a position where OU could use some of the money they've got sitting on the sidelines to make a couple of key flips and improve the recruiting class. But you just can't, it's the negativity in recruiting is just overwhelming. The coaching staff is fighting battles. Just the negativity in terms of everyone saying, Brent's gone, the coaching staff's going to be gone, the guys recruiting you won't be there. No point visiting OU. No point verbaling to OU. If OU improves on the field, those messages can get flipped, and OU can make a move with some targets and then bring some guys in. They've got official visits to use. They haven't used official visits for a number of players who they could, aggressively look at. There's some guys verbal to some programs who I think they're going to lose their coaching staffs. Dallas Dickerson is at Kentucky. I think Mark Stoops is in serious trouble. There's a very good offensive tackle, offensive guard verbal to Arkansas. Obviously, we think Pittman might be in trouble. The thing we just need to just focus on is Brent usually had recruiting done by September 1st. That's not the way Nagy's going to work. Senior film will matter a lot. And we just need to understand it. We've got big recruiting weekends we can use. We've got good home games, Michigan, Auburn, Ole Miss, LSU, and even Missouri to a certain degree. So OU's got dates they can bring kids in during the fall to try and just add the final pieces to this recruiting class. But if you could pick up Golden, T-Ron Richardson's deciding at the end of this month, end of August. If you get Golden and T-Ron Richardson to go with Harris, that's a 3-player D-line class, super athletic, talented, long guys. And then if you could pick up Krull and Davion Gross, that gets you, that would put you up to about like 19 commitments and put you in a good spot where you need another wide receiver, another linebacker, another offensive lineman, and you'd be basically where you need to be from a recruiting class standpoint.
Well, there's your recruiting, people. Brady, you got anything that you want to, any notes, any parting shots for the Texas people, anything that you want to say before we get up off of here?
I mean, the recruiting is what it is. And, Chris is like in the weeds with it. And I appreciate that insight. To me, it just comes down to, and he already said it, but OU just needs to win games. I mean, negative recruiting is going to happen even if, you're good. Like, that's just the way that it is. OU just needs to stop being silly and start winning games. If they win games, things will take care of themselves. And hey, maybe, Brent has had a handful of top 10, near top 5 classes, already in his tenure as head coach. This class, even if OU wins games and they flip some guys and they land some targets that they have still outstanding, it'll climb up in the rankings, but it won't be a top 10 class. So maybe
No,
we're going to
it can't get there. It just can't.
Yeah. But so maybe we're going about it in the opposite direction of, well, the 2023 class was like really highly rated and it ended up sucking on the offensive end. So maybe this one lower rated will just end up being a bunch of diamonds in the rough. And that's how it's going to work. But, we're all going to love whoever signs with OU and think that they're going to be the next great, insert former OU player here. Because that's the beauty of college football. You always get another chance to cycle through another batch of players. So, it comes down to winning games. So they've got a great opportunity ahead of them. They've got position battles to fill out this entire fall camp that we're excited for. And while it's going to be tough, OU, from an offseason standpoint, position themselves in the best way possible to put them in position to beat teams like Michigan, to beat teams like Auburn, and to go into the Cotton Bowl undefeated with a legitimate chance in their mind to say that, yeah, last year was embarrassing. We didn't belong on the same field as our chief rival, the University of Texas. Well, it's going to be different this year. If they go into that stadium 5-0, they'll have at least on paper the right to think that. Then they have to go out there and prove it, of course.
Hey, well, look, people, we've been on here for damn near an hour and 10 minutes. So, with that being said, you got the Horns Down podcast, you got Sooners 360, you got Through the Keyhole podcast, and the Hall of Fame College Football podcast with Jason and the coach. Combine that together, Sooner Intel, all the rest of that. So, that being said, people, this is basically kind of week one of this whole camp vibe. So, we will be back soon. We are pretty much 30 days about to be under a month now until we actually get games. And man, I cannot wait for college football. I'm so crazy that I'm going to watch Irish Formageddon, K-State and Iowa State. For whatever reason they're playing in Dublin, Ireland, that it is what it is. We're getting football. I'm even going to stay up and watch Hawaii. So with that being said, people, we will be back. And next week, Texas fans, please tune in because we are going to talk Texas and Ohio State and the ass whooping they're going to give y'all.